Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video. As you have guessed from the title and from the new setup, this is not going to be a guitar instructional video. Instead, I'm going to try to answer probably the more frequently asked question, especially in the year of 2020, and that is what equipment I use to record my videos. I'm going to divide this video into 4 categories. The first one would be how I record my YouTube videos, so the videos that you see on this channel, both the instructional ones and the performance videos. The second category would be how I record Instagram videos, which are way more casual and a lot faster to do. The third would be how I recorded my CD, or how I would record just an audio file that does not have a video component. And lastly, what I use to teach my online lessons. So for these YouTube videos that you've been watching probably for the last 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, the main camera that I use is the Sony A6300, and that's the one that is filming me right now. This camera I bought when it first came out, so a little bit more than 5 years ago, and the reason I chose it was because it has a really fast autofocus, so it does a good job doing everything itself, so I don't have to manually focus, put some kind of dummy on the chair, focus, come back, move around, and then end up with a blurry video at the end anyway. And it had an external microphone input, which is really important because the cameras, these cameras have really terrible internal microphones. So having an external a plug for the external microphone is super important. So I used that for many years, and then later on I added a second camera. So sometimes you see my right hand in these videos as a close-up, and for that I use the Sony A6000, which is this camera right here, and this is basically the older sister to the A6300. This one does not have a mic input, but because I wasn't going to use the audio from the files off of this camera, I didn't really care that it was in terrible quality audio, so I decided to go for something that's an older model, a cheaper version, just to have a secondary camera. It really does help to have 2 cameras because then you can record 2 angles simultaneously. It saves you time and it gives you options in editing and having different fields, different actual angles of view, which makes the video sometimes more interesting. Not all videos I end up using this, but when I do, this is the second camera that I use. The mic that I use for basically all of the instructional videos that you see, all of the etude series, even the playing portion, the ones that when you listen to it there is no reverb added, those videos are recorded with the Rode VideoMic Pro. That is attached to the camera. It's mounted on top of the camera, which is about, usually in the guitar videos, it's about 3 feet away from me. It's a directional microphone, and it's plugged right into the camera. So I get one file with already the audio and the video combined. And that was part of the reason I wanted the external microphone, so I don't have to worry about a separate audio file I have to sync back. And the videos that you watch that have just me playing without any instructional component to them, and if you hear reverb, in those videos the audio, though it was recorded simultaneously as the video, it was recorded on a separate device. And I've been using these Sony, what is this? PCM M10, PCM M10 recorder that I bought, I want to say, more than 10 years ago. I was still in grad school when I bought this. It's now discontinued. It's this really tiny little thing, but it has really good quality in terms of the audio. My entire first CD, the Paisajes, was recorded with this. So what I do is I put this on a tripod and I put it right out of frame in front of the guitar, and this records the audio at the same time as the main camera and the Rode mic is recording the other audio. But when I actually go to edit, I take the audio off of this one for the playing portion, I add some reverb into it and edit it that way, and then I sync it back. And since it was recorded at the same time as the video, it's super easy to sync back because obviously my fingers match what I played. That's kind of like the main difference between the two. If you hear reverb, then probably this is the one that's been recording the audio, and if there is no reverb, and that's basically just the etude series, then you're hearing straight up dry audio from the Rode. So you can judge for yourself if you like that sound or not. Now, a few things that are important if you're going to record yourself. The first thing is a remote. So when I used to have a camcorder, and if you go back to my lessonettes for Strings by Mail on the Strings by Mail channel, I was just starting out doing this, and you build your equipment as you go. So I've been making videos for almost 10 years, and you learn a few things and you realize what you need and what you don't need. Back then I'd have to go behind the camcorder, press the record button, come back and sit, and then record, and then mess up, and then go and press the button to stop. And it was just like the back and forth was just a nightmare. So this camera, it does have Wi-Fi, so I can control from my phone if I really wanted to, but I wanted to get a designated remote so that I could just press a button while I'm still sitting in the comfortable guitar position and start the recording and stop the recording. What ended up happening, quite by accident, but now I realized how cool that is, because I bought the second camera basically in the same series. It's the same brand, it's the same Alpha series. They're basically the same camera, but it's just one is an older model and one is a newer model. Now when I have these cameras pointing at me, when I press the button, both cameras react to the same remote. So I can press one button and I can turn both cameras on at the same time. And same thing when I turn it off. That makes it so much easier. I don't have to worry about did the second camera start recording or not. And sometimes, if the angle is off, I've definitely messed up where I thought the second camera was recording, but it wasn't. But if I catch the angle right, and if with some experience you learn how to do that, you can control both cameras with one remote. So that I would say, whatever brand camera you get, make sure that you can control it remotely, so you don't have to worry about that whole dance you have to do between your chair and the camera. And another piece of equipment that you don't see right now, but I'll show you in overlay videos, the field monitor. Right now, this is the secondary field monitor right here, and I have another one right below the video. This is important so that you can see yourself. Now, this really depends on what camera you get. The one that I have, the A6300, does not have a flip out screen. I don't know why they made them like that, but that's how they are. And I needed a way to see if I am in frame, especially for the secondary shots. The big one, you set it up, you make sure your chair is in there, you check and stuff, maybe do a sample recording, and you're pretty much good to go. You know you're going to be in frame. But the secondary camera that is pointed at a smaller section and you want to center where your right hand is or where your left hand is, you really have to make sure you haven't accidentally shifted a little bit and gone out of frame. So for that, the secondary monitor or a field monitor, an external monitor, really helps to be able to see yourself. If you have a camera that has a flip out screen, you might not need anything extra unless it's just too small for you to see. I even used a TV. In the past, the way my recording area was set up, I had a TV, just a regular household TV in HDMI cable distance away from the camera, so I just plugged in the HDMI into the TV and watched myself that way to monitor. And in terms of lights, honestly, it's nothing fancy. I have an umbrella light right in front of me. I usually put it onto the kind of my left side to illuminate from the front, and it's just a light bulb. It's a, what is it, like 5500K light bulb that just is bright enough, and that's what I have right now. Now in this setup, in basically the last videos after I have moved apartments, the background, see that now it's purple, that is controlled by an LED panel. And it's just an LED, RGB LED panel. So I can control it from my phone, change the colors of it, and cast a different color onto the white wall to make it a little bit less boring behind me. In the basically majority of the videos that you see were shot in my old apartment, and there I had very limited space in terms of what can and cannot be in frame, so that fake brick wall that you are used to seeing, if I moved my camera a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, a little bit too much of unsightly things would be seen. So I was very confined into what angle I could shoot. Here I have a little bit more flexibility, and because the walls are white, I can change the color. So I went a little bit fancy and got the color panel. And the last thing that is super important to make your life easier when you're recording these videos is to get some sort of dummy battery adapter for your camera, so you don't have to rely on the actual batteries of your camera. I have one here that's it's basically the Sony battery, but it's a dummy one, so the connector is just in the shape of a battery, and it's connected to a wire. So I just plug this into the camera battery compartment, and I plug this into the wall, and I never have to worry about my camera running out of batteries. Because believe me, I've been there where I'm recording and maybe something took a little bit longer than I expected because I had to do something 20 times instead of 5 times to get it right, and my battery is dead. And yes, I have multiple batteries, and yes, I can switch it around, and it doesn't take that much time, but that interruption of like you're recording and maybe it was your best take, but your camera died in the middle of it, not worth it. So invest in whatever camera you get, I'm sure you will be able to get some sort of adapter that you can make your camera work off of a wall outlet and not off of battery power. Now, for the Instagram videos, I try to make it as simple as possible because they are usually done in the middle of my practice session. So I don't really want a 20-minute setup for a 59-second clip. Usually I'm practicing and I decide to record the clip either for my own evaluation and then I delete it, or I end up sharing it with you. All I use is my phone. It used to be my iPhone XS and now it's the iPhone 12 Pro. I used to put it on my music stand, but I had to fiddle around to make sure that it's vertical so it's not just like showing my head from underneath, and that ended up being a little bit too cumbersome and the phone would fall and stuff sometimes. So I got that stand that you see behind me with the ring light, and I just mount my phone onto that and I control the phone from my watch, or you can get like those little clickers so you can press record without having to get up and touch your phone and stuff, and the ring light helps with the image. This way it's a very minimal interruption into your practice and it's not so massive like for the setup for the YouTube videos. In terms of mics, I used to use for a period of time this Rode what is it called? Video Mic Me L. L stands for lightning. There's also a different version of it that's for Android phones. I use this because in the past, I guess where I was putting my phone or how close it was, the guitar ended up being too loud and it would just sound distorted on the recording. And this helped with that. The quality of the audio is better when you use this, but I noticed that the volume is a lot lower. And since I use the native app on the phone, just to save time and not to have to fiddle around with a third-party app and stuff, I ended up just dropping this altogether and I don't use the external mic anymore. For my audio recording that does not have any video component that goes with it, as I mentioned earlier, my entire first CD, Paisajes, was recorded with this Sony PCM M10 recorder. I just put this on a tripod in front of me. I fiddled around with the positioning. I monitored the audio with a set of headphones as I was recording it. And then I used the Sony SoundForge software that came with the recorder actually to edit and to put reverb on the files before sending it off to disc makers. Since then, I have upgraded my equipment. So for my second CD, Grand Solos, I used the Neumann KM184 stereo pair microphones that are behind me on the bar. And for the interface to connect to the computer, I used the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 or 212, the third generation, I believe, if that matters. And I found that that was totally enough for me because I'm only recording solo guitar. I'm only really going to plug in those two microphones into it, so the two XLR inputs that it has, that was all I needed. If you want to record multiple microphones, you might need to go with something a little bit more advanced. And for the recording software, for that CD, I used Logic Pro X, and I switched because I used to use the Sony SoundForge and I had a Mac version of that, but as soon as that updated to the Catalina, my software stopped working with it. So in order to avoid that in the future, I decided to go with all Apple software. That way at least I know if they upgrade the iOS, it will also match, they will hopefully update their software that they make in order to match the iOS, so I don't have to worry about not being able to use the software that I had. Now, for the recording actual setup, I'm not a sound engineer. I just went with what sounded good to me. I placed the microphones about that far apart. You can see that they're about a foot apart or so, pointing a little bit towards the center, and they're about 2 feet away from me, maybe a little bit closer, maybe a foot and a half. And I used Sony Studio headphones to monitor. I don't use noise canceling headphones when I do that, just because I found even though noise canceling headphones are awesome for the airplanes, I don't want any kind of distortion of what I'm hearing through the noise canceling. So I just used over-the-ear Sony studio monitoring headphones to listen to what I'm playing and to see what kind of sound I wanted and how I wanted to place the microphones. And what I liked about Logic actually, and I'm not really sure if the other software would have the same features, probably, I just never got a chance to use it, but I liked how when I'm doing multiple takes in Logic, it just records everything stacked up vertically, and you just record over and over and over again, and when you're done you have, let's say, 5 takes or whatever, and then you can, in the editing process, it's a lot easier to just choose, let's say you want this section from this take, that section from that take, and another section for another take. And the crossfade that it does automatically to avoid any kind of clicks between your, like at your editing points, it's great. Like I remember having to fiddle around with the sound waves, making sure that they matched so that you couldn't tell where I cut something and added together. Logic does it for you, so it's a lot easier. It ended up being a faster process. So really, that's what I do for in-home sound recording. And you can check out the CD to see if you like the way it turned out. Both the Paisajes CD and the Grand Solos are on my website, and there are samples. You don't actually have to buy it. There's 30-second samples that are available. You can go listen and see if that's the kind of sound you want out of your own recordings, and then now you know how I made them. Now on to teaching, which is basically what I do the majority of my time. I don't really make videos every single day, but I do teach online almost every day of the week. And when I first started out, I literally just used my iPad. And as long as I had a really fast internet connection, it was pretty good quality. And I find that a lot of my students are just using their iPads. And again, if both of our internets are really fast, it's really good and workable quality. You don't need to go and get all sorts of fancy equipment to be able to take online lessons or even teach online. So I just started out with the iPad, and then eventually I upgraded to the MacBook Pro. So I have the 2015 version, and I taught on that for 5 years up until our special times of 2020. I taught on that, and back then it didn't bother me at all that the screen was only 15 inches and it wasn't very big, because I would only teach, let's say, 2 or 3 students maximum online, and then the rest would be in person. So I didn't find myself sitting in front of a computer the entire day. But then since March, the first couple of months, all of the in-person students became online students. So I found myself sitting in front of a computer almost the entire day, and I noticed that I was actually physically getting tired of sitting in front of this small screen. And I could have raised it and everything, but I decided to upgrade. And what I use now is just a 27-inch iMac, which allows me to make the video of the student almost full screen. I don't even end up using the entire screen because it's so big, but it's significantly bigger than the laptop. And I can sit straight in front of it and not really like crouch and everything. So I use the iMac to teach. And then for the audio on my end, I use the Blue Yeti. The microphones, they're pretty good. They were actually, I think, sold out for a period of time because I think everyone was all of a sudden buying external microphones. So they come in different colors. I think the most popular one is maybe silver. I got teal because it's my favorite color. So I have the Blue Yeti for the external microphone. And then for the camera, even though the camera on the Mac is decent enough for teaching, and for the laptop, that's really all I used. I didn't have an external webcam. But because of the placement, it's so high up that my angle of view is from the top. And I find that a lot more difficult to work with when I'm trying to teach students, show to students from different angles. On the laptop, it was no problem because the height of the laptop made the camera right in front of me. So I could just like come close to it and show different angles, and it was a lot easier. With the iMac, I ended up getting an external camera, and this one is nothing special. I don't even know the brand. Literally, when I was buying it, every single webcam was sold out, as I'm sure a lot of you have experienced similar times. So I just got whatever was available on Amazon. And it's a decent enough camera. The only thing is it's a bit too wide angle, so sometimes if I get too close to it, it kind of distorts the image, but I've made it work and it's been fine. And what I like now is that I place it sort of low. You can see it's right in front of me. It's on a tripod, so I can move it around, and if I want to show a student something really up close, I can literally take the camera and hold it wherever I want to show them from whatever angle that I want for my hands. So it's a lot nicer to have this portable camera than to have your computer camera or have the camera attached to the computer. I could have put this on top, but then it doesn't really solve the issue of the angle. And that's all I use for teaching. I think one of the more important things for online teaching is to make sure that you have really fast internet. I found that the equipment almost matters less, but whenever I've had a student who even has like the fanciest stuff on their end, just like I do on my end, if their internet is slow, we have issues with lagging, quality. They might have a really nice webcam, but I'm still seeing a blurry image because the internet is too slow. So if anything, I would invest in the speed of your internet before I would start updating with all of this peripheral, equipment. Same thing goes for the sound. If the internet is bad, your fancy microphone is not going to sound fancy on the other end. So I think that's really it. I don't think I forgot anything. And if I do, I'm sure you will have questions in the comments and I will try to answer that way. I hope that was helpful for you to have some sort of behind the scenes of what kind of equipment it takes to make these videos. This is by no means a required list of things to have. As I mentioned, when I first started making these videos, I literally just used a Canon camcorder that I had to get up and press the button and come down. It's just in the last 10 years of making videos, you slowly upgrade. I remember my lighting was literally an extension cord with the light bulb and the socket. So the socket was plugged into the extension cord and the light bulb was attached to it. There was nothing fancy. It was like hanging on a hook on the ceiling to illuminate the area that I was teaching. And then eventually, you know, I upgraded to umbrella lights, and I changed the camcorder to something better with an interchangeable lens camera that I can play around with, and so on. So it took, you know, 10 years to build the equipment. You don't need to go and buy everything at once. You just, you use what you have, and then you see if something is missing, maybe you save for it or whatever, and you update from there. So it's not really a required list. But I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in the next video with my guitar in my hands. Thank you for watching.